the Hallelujah Chorus from the Messiah, Handel's Messiah. You're listening to Morning Light on Classic 107. And I have in the studio with me the conductor who's in town to perform with the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra. His name is Ivars Taurins, the founding director of the Tafelmusik Chamber Choir. He was also the violist with the Tafelmusik Orchestra for its first 23 years. And he's the principal Baroque conductor of the Calgary Philharmonic Orchestra. He was for 10 years. And he makes his home in Toronto, sometimes in Calgary, but he's pretty much all over Canada, especially around this time of year. It's a very popular time of year for Handel's Messiah. Good morning, Ivars.
Good morning. Great to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here this morning. And I just mentioned it's a very busy time for you now. Handel's Messiah kind of takes over your life around this time of year.
Yes, it does.
But before we chat about Handel, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background in music and how you became to be so beloved in the Baroque community?
I look back and it's a little daunting that at age 23, I happened to be in the right place at the right time with a small group of like-minded people who had studied in Europe Baroque on original instruments, and we're back in Toronto and saying, there's nothing like this in Toronto. There are a number of Baroque ensembles around in the States and Montreal, and that was about it. So we said, why don't we have an experiment and get together and have a trial first Baroque orchestra concert, and that was in 1979 in June, and that was kind of the kickoff for what became the Tafelmusik Baroque Orchestra. 2 years later, I founded the choir, and it's just grown and grown in stature and in numbers as well, to be world recognized. So it's a little daunting when I think that at the young age of 20-something, I had no idea that this would be happening in my life, and that's been my life. And my wife's, who Charlotte Nediger, is the keyboard player, harpsichordist in Tafelmusik for as many years, and she wears many other hats in the organization. But that's been our life, and it's amazing.
How did you make the switch from the Baroque music to the choral music? Was that an interest of yours that you've always had? I was always
doing both and interested in both in my teens already. So it's a little confusing to the choral community or the orchestral community. For many years I was kind of, they couldn't figure out where I was, and the orchestral musicians thought I was a choral conductor, and the choral community thought I was an orchestral person. But I'm equally comfortable in both genres and enjoy it so much. It's such a joy to be able to do choral music work. I have worked with youth choirs, National Youth Choir 2 years ago, and Ontario Youth Choir for a number of years, and Nova Scotia, here and there and everywhere. So to work with, and also professional choirs, to work chorally and then also have the technique and ability to work with an orchestra as well, and combine the two. It's been a real blessing.
So when did you first encounter Handel's Messiah?
Massey Hall performance with Lois Marshall and a countertenor at that point. That was the first time Toronto Symphony had done a Messiah, I think, with a countertenor, Theodore Gentry, who's since passed away. And that was the first time I heard the piece at the Venerable Massey Hall. Little did I know that I'd be on that stage myself leading a sing-along, and actually some of our performances a decade ago were also there. But that was my first experience of it, and I was hooked.
And it's become a huge part of your life. I think you mentioned just off air, we were chatting, 30 years now you've been performing.
Over 30 years consecutively
Messiah.
Doing Messiah performances, both with Tafelmusik and with orchestras across Canada.
So when did this whole idea of the sing-along come into play?
That would be 28 years ago. Toronto hadn't had a sing-along Messiah for a number of years. Toronto Symphony had done one, I think, under Elmer Eisler, or even farther back under Sir Ernest Macmillan. But then there was this hiatus, and there were some smaller community-style sing-alongs, but nothing on the scale of, professional symphony orchestra or Baroque groups. So we thought, why don't we give it a whirl? I was a little hesitant because at that point we were already doing 5 concert performances in a row in that week, and I thought adding on top of that a sing-along, that was going to be a little daunting. Mm-hmm. And so I, with our manager at that time, Otti Lockie, I tried to dissuade her by saying the only way I'll agree to it is if you let me get dressed up as Handel, which I thought she would go, no, then forget it. And she loved the idea, and my goose was cooked. Mm-hmm. But then I quickly realized that it fit because we were a Baroque ensemble. We perform Messiah differently than a symphony orchestra, with its added elements over the decades and centuries. Things were added to it because it's such a loved piece. Instruments, size, everything about the piece grew into this icon. And so that was already a difference. And we thought, well, why don't we take the audience not only into the piece, but back into the 18th century? And what better way to present Messiah than through Mr. Handel himself? And so I did a lot of research. I had done a lot of reading about Handel's life, about the man, his character, anecdotes about him, little quotes. And I put that all together to create a kind of persona of Mr. Handel coming down every December from the Almighty to perform sing-along messiahs on earth.
Accent and everything.
Oh, accent! Everything is there. I have the fat suit as well. I try and keep him and me kind of separate. It gets difficult sometimes, but I've had Germans come up to me. So what part of Germany are you from?
So I'm in the studio now with Handel right now. I mean, Ivars Taurins, the conductor, who dresses as Handel, and you can see him this weekend with WSO, Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra. He's the founding director of the Tafelmusik Chamber Choir. But he's this, as I say, this time of year, Handel takes over his life. What do you think, Ivars? What do you think it is about this piece that people want to sing along? I mean, there's lots of choral music. There's hundreds and hundreds of choral pieces. What is it about Handel's Messiah that just inspires people to want to sing along?
Well, I think besides the sing along, just the number of people that want to hear Messiah every year, it has had a performance history that's been continuous ever since Dublin, 1742, which it was a hit there. He had much more trouble in London in the first few seasons, but once it became connected with charity, which he did in the 1750s, because he was a governor of the Foundling Hospital, Thomas Coram Foundation, which still exists. It was a hospital, so to speak, for orphans. And he decided to use Messiah as the fundraiser for this institution. And that brought the public around. And they kept coming, and it was performed every season, and it grew and grew. And these performances were during Lent. Mm-hmm. Typically, the oratorio season in London was Lent, because it was considered a time when we should not be going to opera and hearing about sex and murder and all those lovely things that we like to still watch on television, but a contemplative time of year. It was in Victorian England that it switched to Christmas, about the same time that Charles Dickens and the Christmas Carol, which has the same themes of goodwill towards men, charity, charity towards the poor, and this feeling of goodwill. People are looking for some kind of solace, some kind of quietude away from the hustle and bustle and chaos and media attack of our crazy world, to find that solace. And Messiah has fit that. It doesn't matter what your background, nationality, faith, whatever. The music is so amazing. The message is universal. And I think that is why it still has a great popularity, and that there's a need for it. We had thought maybe some years in Toronto people were getting tired of it, we should do something else. And we were wrong. People are clamoring every year. It becomes a part of one's tradition. The best things in life are the traditions we put around special events, weddings and birthdays and funerals and special moments. And Messiah has become one of those things for many, many people. English-speaking world mostly, because in Europe it's Bach's Christmas Oratorio. Fewer performances, I'd say, in Germany than in English-speaking centers. But I just last year, got an email from a choir in Dubai, a church community, Christian church community, that every year put on a performance of Messiah.
Wow. It's all around the world.
It's all around the world. And then to have the opportunity to sing along, not just listen to a recording or come to hear a concert, but actually participate. Mm-hmm. And from my point of view, to also to be participating with, world-class soloists, which a regular audience member would not be able to have the opportunity. That's a thrilling thing as well. So it's fantastic music. It's a wonderful sing. So many people know the music. Through their community choirs and church groups or in their youth, whatever. It's a beloved piece, and they bring their scores. And if, for instance, with the sing-along here with Winnipeg, if you don't have your score, you can buy one at the door and have a virgin copy, and hopefully it will be well used to those people who are coming to Messiah for the first time. And it's always amazing to me how many people are new to it and still come. We did a workshop in Toronto just 3 weeks ago as a kind of warm-up for sing-along in Toronto with the Tafelmusik, because people were asking, we'd like to practice a little bit before Mr. Handel gets on stage. And so it was our first event of that nature. We had over 300 people come, and a third of them were new to Handel's Messiah and to the whole phenomenon of coming to a sing-along.
So it's for newcomers and experienced people, singers, non-singers, people who sing in the shower, in the car, wherever. It's just an opportunity to really feel the power of singing with a whole group of people, with an orchestra, and being conducted by a wonderful conductor like Handel, Ivars Taurins. Thank you very much for coming in this morning. And, have a fun weekend. Have a really fun weekend. Continue the tradition.
Thank you.
With our blessings. And we're going to have another listen to a little piece of music from the Messiah right now. Ivars, have a wonderful day.
Thanks so much.
And hopefully we'll see you back again soon.
Hope so.